Hey everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're fixing up an old surface grinder that's seen better days. I'll be mixing in a little design, some 3D printing to make a custom wheel to try and get this thing a little closer to grinding again. If that sounds like something you're into, hang around to see how this one turns out. Now this video doesn't really have anything to do with this surface grinder, but for a little backstory, I picked this one up a little while ago and it needs a little bit of love. There's a bit of rust and muck around the place, which I'll get to another day, but this wheel is snapped off in transport. It's probably not super important. This grinder has a hydraulic feed, and this is just a positioning handle that manually moves the bed under the grinding head. There's probably an option out there to buy one if I looked hard enough, but where's the fun in that? The original seems to be injection molded around a knurled boss, and I think I can make a replacement for it, so off it comes. It's a pretty solid little chunk. I need to get the rest of this handle off. You know that old screwdriver that you have that just seems to double as a pry bar, chisel, or anything else you can think of that has nothing to do with screws? Well, this is mine, and it's had a hard life. But that came off pretty easy. There's a bit of rust and muck to clean up, so I'll give it a buff and take some measurements. Now I am going to try and heat set this boss into my new handle, and that knurled section is about 42mm in diameter, which I have no idea if that'll work. Pretty much anything I've ever seen before of those little heat sets is the ones that people use in those little electronics and stuff. And this is just the same thing, but bigger, isn't it? And something I did forget to film, there is a little brass insert also molded into the original wheel, holding that little truckie's hand in. I did get that out and we'll be using that in the finished wheel, if I can make it that far. And off to SolidWorks we go. And I'm definitely not someone that should be showing anyone how to use CAD on the internet. And if watching someone hand-fist their way through a simple part isn't for you, skip ahead to
6 minutes 2 seconds
to get back on track. But for everyone else, I'll let this run a little. And again, I'm not pretending to be that good at using CAD, but I know it helps me a lot when I see snippets of other people's process, so hopefully someone out there might get something from this. So I'll start with the profile of the wheel to revolve around. Starting with the center line, I'll sketch a rough drawing of what half the handle would look like as a cross section. Then add in some dimensions. This one's 25mm square on the outer edge, and the thicker portion in the center that will accept the boss needs to be about 18mm. Then another line set back half the diameter of the knurled section, and I can trim off the excess. That should set the spacing from the central point for the large hole in the back of the handle. Now just a little profile on the front. That will be a smaller section at the front that everything will fit behind. Now for the overall depth, trim the unneeded lines, and that's good to go. Now it can revolve around that central axis. And hey, that actually looks pretty good. To remove the excess in the handle, I'll just change planes, and using the circles from the original drawing as a guide, make a new sketch. Now I'm going for a 2-spoker to match the wheel that was originally on the machine, and I can't imagine the shape of them is at all critical, so I'll just use an arc to give it a little swoopiness. I need some center lines. And these can all be made coincident so they don't try any funny business. Then I can simply mirror the sketch around one axis, and then that sketch around the other, and that looks about right. So then it's just an extruded cut through everything to give us our profile, and that looks like a blocky hand wheel. Now to hit every edge with some fillets and chamfers to clean everything up, and we've got ourselves a wheel. And now into the slicer, and yeah, I added that hole for the other insert. And I've also added some text to make it a touch more personal. And sliced. That looks like a lot. I'm going to print this one from PETG, which probably isn't the strongest thing in the world, but it's the only thing I have on hand that seems to offer anything in the way of chemical resistance, and I'm sure this thing will see its fair share of chemical in its life. That support is going to suck to remove, but I really want the layer lines on the print across the part, so that when the twisting motion is applied, it's going against the layer lines, not following them. Ugh, now that's going to take a while, but I really want that low layer height, so wait we will. Now, I did spend a little bit more time cleaning that up than I'd like to admit. That PETG, even with the right support, can be tricky, and it's rougher than I'd care to admit. But it's supposed to look a bit DIY, I guess. And here's that little brass insert that I saved from the broken wheel earlier. I feel like I've said it a lot, but I really don't know what I'm doing. And I could heat this whole part in the kiln, but I think if I heat the knurled area to where I need it to be, and try not to heat the mass at the base, keeping track with the thermometer, this might just work. Hotter at the top than the bottom. Have you ever done something like this to save an old machine? Let me know in the comments below. And that fits like a glove. A bit of an air quench. And it's in there. Just to repeat the process on the brass. By comparison, that's easy game. In goes the little handle, and let's see how we go. It feels pretty sturdy, and wheels like it should. I'll call that a win. Now, it's not perfect. Something has gone a little off and there's a little more wobble than I would like. But if it ever gets to me that much, I guess I'll just print another one. And it's still a very viable replacement part. It's really nice to fix stuff like this and end up with a part that looks like it was supposed to be there, and try some new stuff along the way. Thanks for hanging around, everyone. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. See you on the next one!